What's going on, 5-9 Gaming Crew? Lethal One up here, joined with Gale and Nolar to come back on this series that is Cyberpunk 2077's just like demise. It's getting, it's a continuation from last time, right? So essentially from the last video you guys got from us, we talked about how PlayStation has officially delisted the game. They're offering full refunds, and now we're basically going to continue off of that. And there's official notice now that says from Xbox support that Xbox has hopped onto this trend, and now they're also going to be giving full refunds. They're going to do the whole thing where they're going to do a different refund policy just to kind of go ahead and offer up. They have to give a refund for the state of the game and how bad it's going. So they've hopped on this as well as Best Buy, but we're going to go ahead and take a look into these a little bit further. But Nolar, Xbox is going ahead now and giving their refund. This is a great move, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of was forced by Sony yesterday when they said that, hey, we're giving blanket refunds, and people who we're taking the game off the store because we don't want people to be misled in thinking that this is something they approve. Now, just one quick side note: I know people were saying like, well, Xbox and PlayStation had their own qualification process that they had to review. And they're absolutely right. That's true. But clearly something fell apart along the way. Now, in my conspiracy theory is that CD Projekt Red's like, look, we're going to have a day one patch. All this stuff will be patched. Like, don't worry about it. It is what it is. Just let us through. That could be it. To me, that's a little preferential treatment, I should say. And shouldn't be the case, because if that's the case, then they should let that leeway go for every major studio and even indie studio at that point. But look, there's been a breakdown in communication along the way, especially when CD Projekt Red was like, yeah, you guys can get a refund from Xbox and Sony. Just go to them. And clearly they didn't communicate that. Even CD Projekt Red's management admitted that in a investor call and said, like, yeah, we didn't really communicate that and work things out. We just figured things would go smoothly. Well, yeah, Xbox and Sony don't have the best. Well, I think Sony has it a little bit worse, but they're not the easiest ways to get refunds on digital purchases, right? So adding that on top of the lack of communication from CD Projekt Red, it just turned into a disaster. And honestly, it seems like Sony were kind of pissed and was like, you know what? I'm throwing back this bomb in your court. And then and Microsoft today is like, yep, we're doing the same thing. So you guys can eat none of the sales that are going to happen the next 2 weeks until you fix your stuff. And right now, this is prime time period for them to get some of that holiday cash. So
exactly, it's literally the worst time for this to happen. Gail, what's your take on it?
Frankly speaking, I completely agree with what Nolar said in terms of the whole refund situation and everything, and it's good that Microsoft did follow up. Obviously, we haven't heard anything from Steam still. But one thing that I'm a bit I'm a bit confused by is as to why Microsoft didn't remove the game in itself like Sony did. Because in my opinion, if the game was that bad to the point where you had to change your entire policy, I mean, at that point, you may as well cut the losses as well and become like Sony, where you're not even advertising the game anymore or anything of that sort, and are just like, you know what? Here's the game as well. We don't want any of that near our store as well. Because at that point, it's the same point that I brought up yesterday as well with the whole thing of not everybody's on social media and not everybody knows about this whole thing that's flying around regarding Cyberpunk 2077. Not everybody's kept up to date. They'll find out a couple of days later maybe, or something along those lines. So if somebody notices it and buys it and it's like, wait a second, this game is not as good as I thought it was, and say it's past the refund date, you run into a bit of a problem like that. I think Sony took the right call, in my opinion, of course, to remove it entirely from its store to avoid any issues in the future regarding any refund policies or anything of that sort, until CDPR know that the game is perfectly stable and good to run effectively, in my opinion at least.
Yeah, just let me jump in real quick. So Sony did it right, because if someone had bought it, right now, if they just said they were giving refunds and still listed the game in the store, I could just go in, zoom through the campaign, and forget some of the side quests, get all the main quests done, get the whole storyline, and maybe get it done right before the deadline, and then ask for a refund. So that, Sony made it the smart move. It's like, well, we're gonna have to give full refunds, and then you just can't buy it, because we don't want to have this whole thing of people, as good as people are, there are some not so great people out there, morally speaking. So they'll just go through, buy it, refund it. Hey, I got the whole story. I'm good to go now, right? The other thing too is I think Microsoft partnered up with CD Projekt Red because they have like specialized consoles, right? Like special edition Cyberpunk 2077 consoles. So I don't know if like they're comfortable just pulling the game altogether, because that would then not look good on their partnership agreement. I have no idea. I'm just speculating at this point, but that could be a reason why they're giving refunds, but they're not delisting the game.
Yeah, possibly. It's just that I understand that, and I was thinking about that as well, to be honest. But at the same time, it's just like, at what point is like a partnership worth it, or fulfilling like, just keep making sure that nothing goes wrong in terms of refunds and whatnot worth it as well.
Right.
So it's like a question of which way to go, basically. And I think obviously they chose the keeping the partnership alive kind of thing.
Great points. Just to quickly segue into a tweet that we have here from a user named Zach. That's all we get. Basically saying, hey, at Xbox support, I just got refunded for Cyberpunk, but now you guys are removing it from my console? Confusion. I want to play the game still. You scammed the world by allowing a game to be released and sold on your console that does not work and will not work for months. There's confusion on my end on this, and I think there's confusion on a lot of us too. But if you ask for a refund for a game, the company gives you the refund, but then you're confused why they're taking it off of your console. I don't know. Now I'm confused because of how are you confused? I think that's just to kind of segue off of the whole Xbox support. But I mean, like Nolar said, we're getting individuals that are, I don't know, they want to refund the game but still have access to the game. I mean, I know you can still play the game on like your base consoles, but the reason why the whole refunding is happening because it's just really unplayable to the point where you're going to have one hell of a time trying to complete that game. So, I mean, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, Nolar, are you surprised? Is this confusion to you?
Yeah, it was baffled me too, because I was like, so I bought a product, it's defective. I asked for a refund, but I want to keep the product. Right. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, no offense to the guy, but it just seems like people still want to play it. The problem is like it's just very unplayable. Now, again, not everybody's having game-breaking bugs, right? They might just have some pop in or whatever the case may be. But just a general rule, like I was looking at some reports and they're like their goal for the base current gen consoles was 30 frames per second. Sometimes you're getting as low as like 10, 11, maybe even single digits, and for those people who don't know, like there are health consequences. Like obviously, there's this whole other thing we didn't even address, which was the flashing lights can cause seizures, and they didn't even put that warning in the beginning until someone was like, "Hey, this is the exact same pattern to give someone to induce a seizure." So you need to put a warning in there, and yeah, so like there's health consequences, like low frame rates, as it sounds as memey as it does, can cause nausea, right? Like, because your eyes trying to adjust to something, if it's not moving smoothly and you're just jumping frames, it could cause people nausea. So like there's health concerns here, which is also the reason why Microsoft and Sony felt compelled to be like, all right, we're just giving blankets refunds. But yeah, this guy a little unusual, because it's hey, I want my money back, but why can't I keep this thing I want my money back for? So, yeah. Gail, what do you think?
No, I 100% agree. I mean, I posted the tweet in our Discord, and I was like, well, that's questionable as to why you think you'd get it back, but okay. It made me giggle a bit because I was just about to start streaming, and I just was scrolling through Twitter and I saw it, and I was like, wait, are you seriously somebody seriously complaining about not being able to play the game even though you asked for a refund? The only issue I had, honestly, with the whole Xbox article felt very empty. It was just like, oh, you want a refund, just take a refund. Whereas Sony felt impactful with the whole thing of like, oh, we're not keeping it on our store and everything. Whereas Microsoft just felt empty after it, kind of. So it was like, well, are you planning on keeping it in the store or not, kind of thing. That was my only thing with it. I think it was pretty straightforward. Obviously, if you refund a game, you should expect to not have the game anymore, of course, or any product for that matter, be it like a furniture piece or whatever you have in real life as well. But yeah, that was the only thing I had a problem with. If there's anything to have a problem with, the understanding the Xbox article was just, it felt empty considering how impactful Sony's was.
I think that's a great point too, because when you mention it like that, for Sony to take down that game, I think it goes to show that, like, maybe the game should never, obviously the game shouldn't have gotten the approval to kind of been released and put out there, maybe from them for the launch standpoint. But I think it looks good to say that, okay, they can say that, okay, this game clearly shouldn't be played right now. Nobody should be, wasting their money to be able to play this game if you're playing it on the base consoles, because it's just not playable. And it is interesting to see how Xbox hasn't mentioned anything about taking the game down. So they're going to allow people to continue buying the game, but they'll offer the refunds. It's you're asking for people to kind of start putting a post like these. It's like, hey, like, I want to try to get away with it or do something. I don't know. It's an interesting thing that I find interesting that Xbox isn't doing it, whereas PlayStation is doing it. And I definitely I feel for PlayStation. I think what they're doing is the right thing to do. Which will go ahead and take us to our first. This is the first time I'm seeing any retailer. I don't know about you guys, but this is the first retailer message that I've seen for anybody buying any physical copies of the game. Best Buy is going to do refunds as well, even open. I think the biggest thing is that they're offering open games too, and I believe it's going to go on up to December 21st, which. That's only a couple of days from now, right? Okay, yeah, that's literally a couple of days before like Christmas. Okay, no, this is the first time I'm seeing this, so I'm glad to see that that Best Buy is stepping up and doing something. It's interesting. I haven't heard anything from like GameStop or Walmart or anything. But do you guys think this? I'll go with you, Nola. Do you think this is a good thing to see that retailers are stepping up now on top of Microsoft and Sony and issuing full refunds as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Because even if you bought a physical copy, it's a defective product, right? In the end, that's what it is. So for base PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, it's the same concept. It's just, it's not working, I'm gonna have to refund it. Now, normally speaking, if you opened it and go back to the retailer, you're kind of at their mercy, and then you're just SOL, right? If they say no. So for them to just be like, hey, look, you've got only like 3-4 days, because it is the 18th as of this recording, so you've got literally 3 days to return this if you are unhappy with your product. But at the very least, they're giving you that option, which is better than nothing. And yeah, so like the physical discs, special editions or collector's editions here, like, yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's a defective product. So get your refund while you can, which is great by Best Buy. I'm sure there are other retailers that are doing something similar. On the flip side, I am sure there are other retailers who are just like, look, sorry, you got what you paid for. Unfortunately, it's not what it is. You can't get the refund. But at least this is turning some heads, because there's this. If this is the first one that I can think of, I'm sure there's a few others like I mentioned. That's a good thing for us as the consumers.
Agreed. Gail, any extra?
All right, so I've got 2 points here. The first point, I'll go through that, and then I'll go on to the more pessimistic point that I want to make in regards to something that's mentioned here. The first point, great to see them, taking back the copies and all that jazz. I think what they should have also done is, again, going back to the whole Sony point, just not sell it until full confirmation from CDPR or whoever is able to test it that it's A-OK and whatnot would be amazing, but it's understandable. Even these guys have probably, pre-ordered these copies from CDPR themselves and putting it up and all that, and it's cost a lot of money. So I understand why they may be a bit averse to having that be the case. Now moving on to the more pessimistic side. Now, obviously, I didn't notice this in the yellow wallpaper that Cyberpunk loves posting every single day at this point, I think, on their Twitter. These Best Buy mentioned that there is a patch coming on 12/21, and even CDPR said only till 12/21 will allow refunds. Now, what if there are some people who are planning on waiting for that patch, but like Hazings mentioned multiple times in previous videos, patches can also not necessarily be effective. They can lead to more breakage. What if the 12/21 patch is even worse, or makes the game even worse than what it is right now, and the refund date's gone by? Do they extend it more, or what do you guys think?
I'll jump in. So normally, there's a thing, right? Patch is supposed to bring a lot of new stuff, but whenever you introduce something new to the system, there's a chance for it to break, right? So I think they're purposefully doing that, and that's just me being the cynic that I am, where they're like, look, this is the patch date. If you're not happy, because basically they're saying, look, if you're not happy with the experience now, go ahead and get a refund. Otherwise, we're assuming you're going to wait till the patch happens. And usually when the patch happens, it's supposed to fix things. And 95% of the time it does, but you may be that unfortunate 5% that just gets screwed, like breaks your console or whatever the case may be. And that sucks. And honestly, you're going to be in that situation. If you're in that situation, you're just basically out of luck at that point. I think they're purposely doing that because they're just saying, look, if you want a refund, you got to get it before the patch. Because after the patch, we're making the assumption that you're waiting for it and you're going to be happy with whatever bug fixes are going to come. And again, 95% of the time, that's the case. But yeah, if you're that 5%, I'm sorry, my friends.
Yeah. Just to add, just real quickly to add to that, because it's not much more to add to that, because I agree with everything you're both saying. But as someone who's playing the game currently, and when they just did, was it the first major patch maybe, or the second major patch? The moment that happened, I think my experience with the game on PS5 has gotten worse. I never experienced any crashes when I first played it day one. It was decent. I mean, it had its bugs, but I hadn't experienced any crashes. The moment I don't know if it was 1.1 or 1.2 dropped, I experienced like multiple crashes. I think I got 3 on record. The bugs are pretty much the same, but I didn't have crashes before. So that's a great point to bring up, Gail, that now I'm thinking about it. Dude.
Yeah, it's just the pessimistic side in me, but it's like it feels too coincidental, It feels like it's too like the same date you want to end the refunds and the same date you want to bring out the patch. Kind of dicey, super super dicey, and I'm not a fan of that, honestly. I think if anything, they should have just kept the refunds through the end of the month. Maybe that would have been safer, I feel. If they are bringing out patches, people can see it for themselves. It's again, if you're being the people's champion, like how people like to call CDPR as the people's champion, then you gotta be the people's champion and allow people to experience everything that you're doing step by step, and that includes, if you're bringing out a patch, let them experience it before being like, okay, we're gonna not allow you to refund it after the patch or something,
Totally agree. Leading into our next point here, we have an article from Bloomberg from Jason Schreier. Now, basically, here, I'll go ahead and just read this first little intro here. Rebellion is in the air at Polish video game publisher CD Projekt SA after the company's highly anticipated and twice delayed latest title was released to scathing reviews about glitches. Frustrated and angry staff fired questions at the board during an internal video meeting Thursday that opened with management apologizing for Cyberpunk 2077's disastrous launch. According to 2 people who were present, it was a fitting atmosphere for a company whose slogan, plastered on posters all around its Warsaw office, is "We are rebels." Excuse me. But essentially, this article goes on to talk about how you have the staff workers in this meeting going against the higher management, and there's just a lot of back and forth here. I mean, you're getting a mixture of basically them asking about deadlines, like them bringing up the topics of deadlines. What's the other word I'm looking for here? Not just deadlines, but there was it's a mixture of things between that and the crunches, the 6-day weeks. Like, there's a lot of things that are coming up, that are saying, essentially how did we get to this point of why it's a mixture of things, but management pretty much allowing this game to go through and be released when it really shouldn't have been released. And go ahead, Nola. You want to go and take a little bit over on this one?
Yeah, sure. So you stopped at a good point here, because it says right there, another developer asked whether CD Projekt's directors felt it was hypocritical to make a game about corporate exploitation while expecting that their employees work overtime.
Right.
The response was vague and non-committal. So, they made a game about Cyberpunk. They made, the aesthetic and the whole corporate overlords, and, they're not under the law by state or federal law or whatever the case may be. It's just funny that this is exactly what's happening at CD Projekt Red offices. So, to me, this just further highlights that the issue of the launch wasn't the developers. They knew what the issues were, and they were trying their hardest to make sure they could deliver a good experience for the gamers, because they themselves are the audience that they're making the game for, right? But management just didn't listen to them. They set unrealistic expectations and deadlines, 6-day a week plus overtime, and the crunch, the extra delay for more crunch, whatever the case may be. Management didn't handle this very well. And the thing is, CD Projekt Red had built a very good reputation for the last, decade or so, since The Witcher and the Witcher series, Witcher 1, 2, and everyone knows them more for Witcher 3, which then spawned a whole like Netflix series with Henry Cavill, and which is successful unto itself. Everyone thought that CD Projekt Red was the company, the chosen one, the ones that would speak and stand for us, the consumers, because again, we had given them this pedestal that they know us because we are them, and vice versa. Well, unfortunately, Cyberpunk or CD Projekt Red's management just completely shattered that. Whatever goodwill and trust they had built for the last, 8 to 10 years is just gone. And it's the whole typical dad quote: "Trust is hard to build and easy to break." And this is exactly what happened. Now, can they turn this around? 100%. Like, the developers can obviously turn this around and make the game better and an enjoyable experience for everybody. But this particular article is just highlighting that management and the developers were not on the same page. Not at all. And they now understand that because management had decided to fast track this and push the release when they knew it wasn't going to be well received, now they know, well, we shouldn't have done that because that costs us more money in the long run, hurts our public image, our PR, and now our developers don't really implicitly trust us anymore when we had that trust to begin with. So this is going to be very difficult. Again, it's just spiraling out of control. The storm keeps going, and again, this is day 2. This is literally the second day we're commenting about all the fallout from the launch. It's just insane what's going on. Gail, I'll just send it off to you. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, you mentioned this in the other video that we did a couple of days ago, or whenever this goes out. It might have been yesterday when that video went out. It's two hands, right? It's one is the development team and the employees who are actually working on the game, the designers and stuff like that, and then of course the corporate/management side. Obviously, the developers knew what was going on, but the management kind of forced them to meet this deadline of, okay, we want it out by 2020, which I still don't understand why there was this need to push it out in 2020 when, this game was planned out to be this whole, spanning across a couple of years, the next long-term game. They were planning multiplayer next year and so on and so forth, free updates to come. There's an anime coming in 2022, so the hype wouldn't have left it had they delayed it to 2021. So there's obviously been some form of miscommunication between the two, or the management side were just not willing to listen, which is very concerning in my opinion if they are the ones obviously helming everything and making decisions on when a game should go out. There's obviously a clear lack of communication, as I said. So it's poor for a company to have a lack of communication, and we can see the results for ourselves as to what's happened because of that lack of communication and lack of trust, I guess, as well between the two. I think because now there's going to be, like you said, even internally there's going to be a lot of trust broken between the development team and the management team. So it's going to be interesting to see how that fixes itself. Are employees gonna potentially leave the company? Are they willing to stick through the company and rough times as well? I think there's going to be a lot of internal problems right now as well, not only just based off this whole thing, but just because of how it's been handled over the last clearly more than a month now or even maybe over the last year, basically, of like back and forth between the head of development team and the management team of being like, what, we can't release this game, but the management team's like, we have to by the end of this year, or we're not going to meet some sort of deadline. As to what deadlines they were, who knows why, or I should say why those deadlines were set the way they were in the first place, to be honest.
Yeah, let me jump in real quick with you. There's 2 points I wanted to make. So there were incentives to bonuses, right? If the game had reached a specific Metacritic score, the development team would have gotten bonuses. Now, obviously, that's not going to reach it because of the terrible launch. So management knew, and rightfully, in my perspective, they said, okay, you know what, we won't enforce those like restrictions to get your bonuses. You'll get your bonuses anyways because we weren't going to meet that Metacritic score, and because of the launch. So sure, but to me, when I hear that, it's like the people in management don't understand what it is, what it takes to develop something, because they're, the people who are in management always got the business degrees. They're not the ones who have started out as the developers themselves, the artists, the graphic designers, or whatever the case may be, right? So they don't have a thorough line into how the process is. So there's always a back and it's a tug of war between, look, I want to give you guys a creative space to finish your project, but we got to meet a deadline because I got my own bonuses, for example, right? I mean, I don't know if this is the case, but this parallels to like Warner Brothers when the Justice League came out a few years ago, and it's had its own rocky development with the studio. The studio heads were like, okay, the director, I forgot his name now, he was saying like, look, I need a few more months to finish this. I need more time, because he came in like 4 months before the project was supposed to be finished. So basically he was like, look, I need more time if you want a good product. The management at Warner Brothers were like, no, I want my bonus for this year. So we're getting the movie out by the end of the year, by I think it was in November of 2018, I want to say. And yeah, the studio heads got their bonuses, but the product was pretty terrible, and it's a Justice League movie. It should have made $1 billion. It didn't even come close. So on this tangent, I'm trying to say that Gail's saying like, I don't know why they're trying to push it out this date. Well, for one thing, we know the bonuses were an incentive, right? They wanted to get the developers wanted to make sure that they got their Metacritic score and they got their bonuses. That didn't happen. They still got their bonuses anyways. Great, because they've been crunching forever. They've been working their butts off. Obviously not a finished product, but that is something to consider. But at the same time, it could be the same thing with the management side and the executives. They could have also need to reach their bonuses for the year, or hit some kind of metric for them to get a pay raise, or whatever the case may be. Like there are selfish reasons in that regard, is what I'm trying to say. And that could be potentially what's happening here. And it's unfortunate, because now the launch has already happened. And just like what happened with No Man's Sky, everyone, even though now it's like a very good game and everyone praises it for its great depth and what the developers have done with it, 99% of the people, when they hear No Man's Sky, they're like, oh, wasn't that game that like crashed and burned when it launched? You're never going to remove the first impression again, right? So Cyberpunk 2077 in people's minds is going to be like, oh man, what a terrible launch. Like CD Projekt Red, why would I trust these guys with my money again? So I don't know. Off on my soapbox, I just wanted to put that out there.
No, and that's like the only extra thing that I could honestly add to that is exactly just how you ended it there. Going forward now, Cyberpunk 2077, like, what is their name going to mean in the future now when this next big title that they're working on? Like, it sucks that it would go back into that whole like, oh man, those are the guys that dropped Cyberpunk 2077. Those are the ones that kind of dropped the wheel and had this crazy, not good communication inside the company and all this back and forth. I mean, it begs the question of who's going to lead this company, like exactly like what Gail said. It begs the question of, in management, is it going to change? Like, what's going to happen now? Because the game, also we all know it plummeted. It lost a lot in finances. It dropped in stock. I mean, there's going to need to be such a big turnaround for this to make a good recovery. And I guess the next thing that I could think of after this is just, how's this going to look in the future now? I mean, they got to fix this game. But keeping on a topic of CD Projekt Red and going into this next topic here, I'm going to let Nolar go ahead and lead this one, because this was an interesting one that he found, to go into the controversial horror game Devotion, back to GOG, which is also with CD Projekt Red. So go ahead, Nolar, give us this whole thing of how CD Projekt Red just continues to amaze us.
Amazing quotes there. All right, so GOG is the Good Old Games. It's another storefront for games, kind of like Steam and the Epic Store, but this is ran by CD Projekt Red. Now, Devotion is a game that's been mired in controversy because I think it's a Taiwanese developer. It's a horror game, and the issues they've been having is that they purposefully or not purposefully, however you want to call it, they put a image of Winnie the Pooh in there. And as you guys may or may not know, Xi Jinping, the president of China, has censored Winnie the Pooh throughout China because people have equated he looks like Winnie the Pooh. I think that's cool, but he's kind of sensitive about it, so he's just literally banned it. And now everything regarding this game in particular, Devotion, was supposed to be just banned from all the stores. So initially, GOG and CD Projekt Red, by accounts, were like, oh, look, this isn't an issue. When they fix it, we're going to put it back on the market, on our store. But then not even 24 hours later, like I think it's even like 4 or 5 hours later, they put out a tweet saying like, actually, we didn't realize how many people didn't like this, so we're just not going to put the game on our store. Now, from conspiracy theory, it seems like it's a bunch of Chinese bots that did it, but either case it is, the GOG was supposed to put out like they were the ones to say, the chosen ones. They gave us cheap discounts, good prices. They don't care about what controversy mires them. They're going to put out a game if it's available, right? And this is the first time I can think of that GOG's like, actually, we're not going to put this on our website. And like right here, right at the bottom of the paragraph there. Meanwhile, GOG is notorious for posting insensitive material on social media, in keeping with CD Projekt Red's habit of appealing to an edgy fan base. Can't think of anything edgier than putting Winnie the Pooh or something, a game that the Chinese people didn't like because it had an image of Winnie the Pooh. Like, it's just a whole mess where it reminds me of when CD Projekt Red first said, we're not gonna delay the game. It's gonna come out in November. And then not even 24 hours later, by the way, guys, we got to delay till December. And that was in response to that one guy who's like, hey, I'm going to take some time off to play this game. So get some time off work. I need to prove it. I need to know for sure that this is coming out. They said yes. Literally the next day said, actually, no, it's going to be in December. So rip that guy. But yeah, I don't know, man. It seems like CD Projekt Red, where we gave them the mantle of the chosen one, has they've fallen off. They are now what it seems just another faceless corporation doing what's best for their interests. And look, they're not an indie studio. They're not like EA, but they're not an indie studio. So yeah, they have investors, they have people to answer to. But we always thought that they would hold up our principles and our values as gamers, because they themselves are those gamers. And apparently that has been shattered. So who's the next chosen one? Is it Sucker Punch now, or is it Insomniac Games?
Please no.
I don't know. Someone
Please.
someone's gonna anoint those guys, and then eventually they'll fall through too. But anyways, I don't know. That's me explaining a little bit of this issue with the GOG and CD Projekt Red right now. So, any thoughts, you guys?
I have nothing to add to it, but I mean, what a week for CD Projekt Red. I mean, Jesus, this breaks the cake from anything that I've seen as bad. Like, if it's not from one thing, and now it's more from this, and it's multiple. It's just like, dude, this is not a good week for you guys. I don't know what you guys are gonna do now. I have nothing else really to add to that besides, dang CD Projekt Red, what have you done to your name? What have you done to this? Like, exactly. Anything extra, Gil?
No, I mean, it's pretty much, you guys covered everything. Honestly, I mean, is it disappointing? Yes. I mean, at the same time, I'll be very honest and say, I mean, at least from the Cyberpunk front, it kind of was expected, considering how they were delaying it. And the thing is, especially the last one, I mean, we've known since September how bad the game was looking. Lethal and we spoke about this, right? With the melee combat system being really poor, and them not fixing it. And even in the previews, it was like, okay, why did you delay it in the first place and still not fix this part of the game, I mean, it's just disappointing all around. It's just disappointment after disappointment. I mean, September, what we saw wasn't impressing for Cyberpunk. Then we come to November, and they delayed it again because it wasn't finished, which was also another disappointment. Then come to December, and we see, before even the reviews are out or even the game is out, that they didn't even fix what we complained about in September. More disappointment, and then we come to this, and it's like, well, that just sums it up. It's a circle of disappointment, effectively.
Totally agree. And the last thing that I could just think of is just to say, CD Projekt Red, any developers, or any, not even just developers, but companies in general, any game companies, just like, I think one thing to keep in mind is that I think your fans for your games would much rather you take the time to develop a game, take the time that it needs, even if it means if you have a release date, and then you kind of push it back longer. I mean, I think that's just a better way to do it, because for whatever reason, pushing out a game early, I think, well, I'm not that it's a surprise, but I mean, clearly forcing out a release like that, it's catastrophic. And if anything, it's showing it here and any other company that does the same thing. But take the time to make these games playable, at the very least playable. Yeah.
Another thing, just listen to your developers. I mean, they know the game more than you do. Like, just listen to whoever's creating the game, because clearly they know how the game functions and they are testing the game. Unless the management, wants to test the game themselves and figure it out that, oh, it's unfinished. Okay, never mind. You guys continue the work you're doing, kind of thing. But listen to your developers more than anything else, because clearly they know the game more than the management or yourselves, if you are a part of the management, do. And this goes to any product as well. It's not just games, but games are obviously this is exactly the perfect place to cover it. So yeah.
All right. Guys, that's going to be it. This is 5-9 Gaming with Lethal One Up, Nolar, and Gale. You guys know we'll bring any extra news that kind of drops from this. I'm just scared to wake up tomorrow or even Monday to see anything new that pops up. At this point, it's just like a recurring nightmare that just doesn't stop. So be sure to check us out over here. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a like. Make sure you check out our Twitch. We have been doing some playthroughs. Twitch.tv/. 5-9 Gaming 1. I have listed my channel. Yeah, 5-9 Gaming 1. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. We enjoy you guys and give us your thoughts. That's what I was going to say. Give us your thoughts down below. What is your take on CD Projekt Red? Like, just give us your overall thoughts on it. But yeah, we will catch you guys on the next video. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys.
Take care.
See ya.